You guys have heard my perspective on the NFL draft. I want to get some other opinions. I got Richie joining the stream. Jets, Jets, Jets! Welcome to Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, I go live every Tuesday for my live call-in show. Myself, O'Leary and Green Bean, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So ask us all your Jet-related questions. But let's move on to our topic of the day. We're getting some outside opinions from some other guys. You heard Jake Asman. You heard Joe Blewett. This time I got Richie from Jets Media. Richie, thank you so much for hopping on.
What is up, Ryan? Always a pleasure hopping on the channel to talk some Jets, and I'm super excited to break down the NFL draft in this one, man. I can't stop thinking about the Jets. Ever since that draft is over, it's been the only thing on my mind, so I'm really excited to break it down with you.
Dude, it was a magical night. Magical 3 days for the New York Jets. This is the best we've probably felt since 2009, 2010 when we were going to those championship games. Maybe that little glimmer of hope that we had in 2015, but this felt really good. So let's go through the 3 days of the draft, starting with pick number 4. Tell me how you kind of felt as the night unfolded.
Yeah, man, going into the draft, we heard so much rumblings about the New York Jets being interested in Sauce Gardner at number 4. So many different reporters are saying that Sauce at number 4 is a real possibility. And for those that's watched my channel over on Jets Media, I've always said how much I love Sauce Gardner. But at the end of the day, back in January in the whole pre-draft process, I never expected him to actually be a Jet. He was one of those draft prospects I fell in love with, and just in a way in my mind, like, oh, he's so cool. He's going to be really good in the league. But I just know Joe Douglas is not going to draft a corner because he prioritizes trenches. That's how I was wiring, but I was completely wrong, and I'm so happy I'm wrong because Sauce Gardner is one of my favorite players in this entire draft process, and when he was the pick at number 4, I was like, wow, Joe Douglas, you did it. You just got one of the top cornerback prospects to come out in the draft in a long time, and I just created an entire rookie profile on him today so I can speak about Sauce Gardner for a long time. I feel like he fits this system so beautifully in terms of scheme, right? He's long, he's athletic, he can play zone, he can play man, and he has this swagger to him that this New York Jets defense has been desperately looking for so long. We have some stars on offense that we can develop in Elijah Moore and now Garrett Wilson and, Zach Wilson, Michael Carter. We got some star power, but we're lacking some youth star power on that side of the ball, and that's what Sauce Gardner is going to do. He's going to bring the energy, he's going to bring the personality, and he's going to bring the swagger, and he's going to be a fan favorite for the Jets.
Yeah, that was something that was really cool to watch. You got to see the big sauce chain, the little sriracha bottle or diamond-studded bottle, the grills. This guy's all iced out, and I really like that. It's going to be a lot of fun to kind of see. You got that swagger for New York City. Just a lot of fun. But like you said, I was really nervous at like the thought of not going edge at number 4. It was kind of like 2 years ago. I really loved CeeDee Lamb, but I felt like, okay, left tackle was the way we should go. It was kind of the same way here. I love Sauce Gardner, but was thinking the Jets would probably go with the edge rusher. So now after that, we wind up passing on Kayvon Thibodeau. The Giants wind up with him. What'd you think about the Giants snatching up the guy that a lot of New York Jet fans really wanted?
Yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau was a player that, a lot of Jets fans were hoping to fall to us at number 4 because at that time we're like, wait, what if he doesn't fall to 4? He's probably going to go top 3. And we're saying if he's at 4, he's the pick. He's a Jet. But then all of a sudden, a couple days leading up to the draft, we find out that the Kayvon Thibodeau is not even on the Jets' radar. And we're like, nah, that's smoke. That's smoke. There's no way. There's no way that the Jets will pass on Kayvon Thibodeau. And me personally, I always felt like the Jets would pass on him even months ago just because whatever came up on him, like in the media saying like he has off the field issues, he's a me guy and all that stuff. I didn't know if it's true or not, but the one thing I do know about Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh is they value that kind of stuff really highly. They look at character, they look at your passion for the game, they look at your values. And I feel like I don't know anything about Kayvon Thibodeau, so I have no right to say if it's true or not. But even when it just got brought up in a conversation, I was like, I don't know if that screams a Joe Douglas guy. And it happens that he's not a guy. He preferred to go Sauce Gardner, and obviously he loves Jermaine Johnson. He was top 8 on his board, and we ended up getting him. So I'm okay. I feel like he's going to be a star for the Giants, though. I love Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, he was one of my favorite players in this draft, and I think he's going to do great things over there in New York.
Yeah, passing on Thibodeau was the one scenario I was really hoping was not going to play out for the Jets. I wanted him to go before our pick, so that way it wasn't like, oh, the Jets passed on an elite edge rusher. We're not going to get our guy. The Giants got a 10-sack guy the next 10, 15 years. It would drive me absolutely bonkers. So now we slide down to number 10, and now I think you're probably thinking, hey, we're probably going edge rusher at this point, right? Like, it's got to be a top 10 pick. We've been looking for one for 15 years. What happens? What's going through your mind at number 10?
At number 10, if you guys saw my live reaction, I was saying Garrett Wilson or Jermaine Johnson will be the pick, and I was convinced it was Jermaine Johnson. like right when we were waiting to see Roger Goodell come out and announce it, I was saying it's Jermaine or Garrett Wilson. There's no way it's any other of these two players. And I'm expecting it to be Jermaine. I was like, that has to be the Senior Bowl, the connection's there. And they go Garrett Wilson. I'm like, wow, they went with the playmaker. They went with Zach Wilson. That's what it really told me, that Joe Douglas is prioritizing Zach Wilson above all else. We know how much the edge rusher means to the team, and hey, we saw what happens. They went up there and got their guy in JJ eventually. But the most important thing is not defense. It's not this. It's not that. It's Zach Wilson. That's getting Zach Wilson a big-time best wide receiver in the entire draft class in Garrett Wilson that can do it all, basically. He's going to be a fan favorite as well. He's going to be a star-style player that is amazing body torque, amazing body control. Just going up there, catch radius is amazing. Take the top off the defense, yak. Garrett Wilson's going to be a beast. But I'm not going to lie, Ryan. After we did draft Garrett Wilson, I was like, wow, we just went back-to-back playmakers without drafting anybody in the trenches. We need an edge. And we know what happens next.
Then we get to 26. The trade up we started seeing, like rumors, everyone was talking about. You're like, okay, are we moving back up to get him? The guy keeps falling. We know we like Jermaine Johnson. Is it going to happen? Is some other team going to snatch him up? The Jets make the move up to 26. How you feeling?
Hyped up, because it felt like the Elijah Vera Tucker situation all over again, because going into that draft, Elijah Vera Tucker is my favorite player at pick 23, but I knew 23 was not realistic, and the only way that we will get him is if we traded up. So when we traded up, it was like a wrap. Right when I saw the Jets on the clock at 14, I'm like, oh my God, we're getting AVT. Same thing with Jermaine Johnson. We're on the clock at 26. He's still available. Oh my God, Jermaine Johnson is a Jet. Joe Douglas, he did it again. He's aggressive. He got his guy. And Jermaine Johnson, Ryan, was a player that I didn't want him, but I was okay with the Jets drafting him at 4 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much I love Jermaine Johnson. I always told a lot of my subscribers that I personally have him higher on a bunch of other edge rushers lists. I like him over Karlaftis and all these other guys. That's obvious, but I just was so high on Jermaine Johnson. And the fact that we got him, and it's a player that Robert Saleh loved at the Senior Bowl, as well as the entire coaching staff, and the Jets were able to get him, it was the cherry on top of an amazing historic Thursday night for round 1 for the New York Jets.
And it almost became even more historic because we found out the next day that the Jets almost traded back into the first round for Breece Hall. We wound up moving up from 38 to 36 with, of all people, the New York Giants. And we wind up selecting Breece Hall at number 36. What were your thoughts about that and the situation of possibly maybe going back into the first round?
Yeah, the fact that Joe Douglas wanted to get back into the first round tells me two things. He really wanted Breece Hall that badly, and he also prioritizes the fifth-year option, because if you guys don't know, only first-round picks get that fifth-year option. If you're drafting the second round or later, you only have 4 years of control. So he obviously knows the running back position's value is a little up in the air. You don't want to overpay. You don't want to do this. So Joe Douglas wanted to get Breece Hall on a 5-year contract with the New York Jets, but wasn't able to do it. But it's okay, because day number 2, he burns a fifth-round pick to move up against the Houston Texans to go and replace with the Giants. And we find out that the Houston Texans were going to draft Breece Hall. So Joe Douglas knows what he's doing. He burns a fifth rounder, gets the best running back in the draft. And when Darrelle Revis was making that selection, I believe he was the one. In my head, I was going through all the players who's available, Nakobe Dean, Breece Hall. Like, what Joe Douglas has shown me so far is he's not going with the obvious pick that all Jets fans want, which is the defense, because that's who our roots. It's a new regime here. The same thing happened last year in the big first pick in the second round. I was expecting him to go joke or a defensive player. They went Elijah Moore. They went with wide receiver. Every single time, and this time I'm like, I think it's going to be a weapon for Zach Wilson. I think Joe Douglas is about to take Breece Hall, the best running back in the draft. And if he does it, that's going to be ridiculous, because what Joe Douglas is doing around Zach Wilson is the best we can ever imagine for a young quarterback. And that's what the pick was. And Breece Hall, you don't need me to break him down. You guys know how great of a prospect he truly is. 3-down back, workhorse mentality, going to be able to tone it back with Michael Carter. He's excited for that, by the way. He's not like a player like, oh, I need the ball, I need the ball. He's excited to take the toll off his body and split carries with the dynamic duo of Michael Carter. The running back room is almost going to be the best position group on this team just out of those two. That's how great, how much potential they have in both of Michael Carter and Hall, man. I'm stoked.
Yeah, and Breece Hall really comes off as a 3-down back. And the best thing about it is we have Michael Carter, so we don't have to use him as a 3-down back. We can take a little bit of pressure off his legs. He's going to last longer into games, longer into the season. And then obviously Carter shared touches in college, so it's kind of nice, takes a little bit off his plate as well. So I completely agree. I love the running back selection. But what I find interesting is that if the Jets were to move up into the first round, you're probably looking at getting rid of the last 3 picks here that we wound up making. So when you look at Jeremy Ruckert, you look at Max Mitchell, you look at Michael Clemens, in my mind, I'm kind of thinking, okay, Ruckert, that's the Jet fan pick. Max Mitchell, that's the Joe Douglas pick. Michael Clemens, oh, that's the Robert Saleh pick. And it's almost like 3 bonus players that we weren't really planning on getting because Joe Douglas was so invested in those top 4. Talk to me a little bit about what you thought about Ruckert, Mitchell, and Clemens.
Ruckert might be my favorite player in this entire draft class, and that has a lot to do with his connection in terms of being a Jets fan, growing up on Long Island. I grew up on Long Island myself, literally 15 minutes away from Lindenhurst, where Jeremy Ruckert went to high school. So that connection's there, and I feel like he is the perfect player to develop behind the 2 veteran tight ends that we brought in free agency in Conklin and Uzama. I really feel like he's raw. He's a run blocking first tight end, which is exactly what you want in the system. And he's a player that also, if you guys saw what he did in Ohio State, every time the ball was thrown to him, he made plays. He flashed the plays, but the ball never really went to his way because of all the weapons around him. And hey, one of those weapons is now on the Jets and Garrett Wilson. So now we're getting an opportunity for Jeremy Ruckert to not go out there in his rookie season and be a top tight end in the league, but he's going to sit there, learn behind CJ Uzama and Conklin. You know Conklin or Uzama are going to get nicked up. It's the reality. Uzama actually is pretty injury prone. So now we have that depth, and we want to run a lot of 12 personnel, which requires 2 tight ends. So to have 3 solid tight ends to fill in and rotate in that role is going to be tremendous. And I think Jeremy Ruckert is going to be one of those players that's just going to be such a great story to watch and just watch him, fulfill his dreams. And I just feel like Jeremy Ruckert is the future tight end of this team. And then the other 2 players, you can't go wrong, Ryan. We finally addressed the trenches in the back end of the draft. Max Mitchell, who his father's actually commenting on my videos like, hey, why aren't you, talking about Max Mitchell? And then I finally talk about him. He's like, yeah, that's my son. Like, he's awesome. He's so excited to be a Jet. Max Mitchell, Ryan, I feel like Jets fans are going to really love his versatility. He can play left tackle, right tackle, left guard, right guard. He's been experimenting all over the line. He said he'd been, experimenting at center, but the Jets had never asked him to do that. So don't expect him to ever do that. But his versatility and his raw ability of just his hands, his athleticism is there. Only thing he needs to do now is put on muscle. And all of a sudden, the talk of the draft class in the national media is Michael Clemens. Michael Clemens is talked to the media. He's a goofy personality guy. He pretended to be an offensive tackle if asked if he ever played that position. He has that business approach where he's just like serious when he's talking on the podium with also a goofy personality. But when he puts on the helmet, as Robert Saleh said, he goes to a very dark place and becomes an animal on there. He's going to be 25 years old as a rookie, Ryan. So he's ready to go right now. And I just feel like you said, Ryan, he's a Robert Saleh guy, and these are the type of players that Robert Saleh loves to have on his defense. And this is year number 2 with Robert Saleh picking players for his scheme, and he's a perfect example of a guy that he wants to be screaming off the edge and dominating quarterbacks with violence. Can't wait.
You touched on the depth aspect of things, and I think the back end of this draft really speaks to that because we haven't had a situation where we can allow our rookies to sit back and learn the playbook. But with Ruckert, Mitchell, and Clemens, you really have that. Those are 3 really deep positions for us, but also positions that we might need guys in the future, like Jeremy Ruckert. Realistically, Uzama and Conklin, probably 2-year options. Maybe one of them lasts a 3rd year, but we can get out of those contracts after just 2 years. Max Mitchell, obviously, we've had some injuries with Mekhi Becton. George Fant is on a 1-year contract right now. Maybe we franchise him at the end of the year, but at least you're building up a guy potentially to take on one of those spots in the years to come. And then Michael Clemens, stacked defensive line right now. This guy's going to be able to just come in and like pin his ears back. 6'7". I've never seen a more stoic, like intense dude at a podium. When I watched that interview, I was like, oh man, this guy looks like he's about to murder someone. Like
10-second pause between everything too.
Oh, he took like 2 seconds. They'd ask him a question and he'd like think about it. And like, I guess that's kind of what you need with New York media because so many people twist things and change your words around. But good dude, he was like scary. I don't want to see this dude on a field opposite of me. He was saying how like the best move he likes putting on a tackle is just punching him in the mouth and really getting to like,
And as a rookie, he's going to be able to do that. Like his body's ready to do that to an NFL offensive lineman this year. Like,
dude, not gonna be massive arms. They were talking like 35-inch arms. That's enormous. The tackle can't get your arms on him if you're like forced him too far away. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Dominating him and Jermaine Johnson as the future edge to develop from this draft class. Absolutely amazing, man. I cannot wait.
Really, really excited. Now, moving on from the draft, I want to talk a little bit about our defense. Let's start up front with that defensive line. Talk to me. How are you feeling about the edges and the interior guys like Quinnen and JFM?
This defensive line is the deepest it's been in a long time, and that says a lot because the one bright spot to this Jets team consistently throughout the dark times of this past decade plus has been the defensive line. It's always been the strong suit. We've always drafted defensive linemen early in the first rounds every single year, it felt like, for a decade. But now we look at this on roster, it gets to the point where we might have to run a 10-man rotation, and it's like, wait, like we have 12 guys. Like there's going to be 2 or 3 guys that like don't make the roster that we're like, wow, they're going to be picked up somewhere else and be really talented. You look at the edge rushers. We have Carl Lawson, Jermaine Johnson II, Vinny Curry, Jacob Martin, Bryce Huff, Michael Clemens, and we have Jabari Zuniga. So those are all the edge. And then don't even forget about John Franklin Myers, who can kick out at edge as well. And you kick on the inside, you got John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, Sheldon Rankins, Jonathan Marshall. There's just so many guys. And Ane is another guy that we got from the Cowboys. So add him to the mix. This is such a deep defensive line, Ryan, and I feel like this is the X factor for this entire Jets defense, that if they can get consistent pass rush where Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich do not have to worry and rely on exotic blitzes, and those 4 men, whether it's the 4 starting guys, it doesn't have to be the starting guys, but any 4 people, if the 4-man rush can get to the quarterback consistently, the entire defense unlocks. And that's what we did not do last year. We cannot get to the quarterback consistently with the 4-man pass rush. If you saw what the San Francisco 49ers did with Robert Saleh when they went to the Super Bowl, that 4-man rush was just elite. Got to the quarterback, took over games. And all I'm trying to say is we have the talent to do it. And we're also prepared for the worst case scenario, which is injuries, because that's what tells you about this deep defensive line. I'm also expecting a big season out of Quinnen Williams. I think this is going to be his best season of his life, and he's going to prove to be a guy to get paid a lot of money, whether it's on the Jets or somewhere else. He's going to have a breakout season, Ryan.
Yeah, you look at this defensive line and all the guys that were on it last year that we had so much hope for. How amped were we about Carl Lawson? How amped were we about having Vinny Curry and having those guys bear down? And then all of a sudden we lose both of them. So even though those are guys that, Curry signed an extension or signed a 1-year contract this year, but realistically we're adding 2 new guys that we had last year that we didn't get to see. So it's fascinating to see, and I think if we do get that edge presence, it's going to start creating some turnovers, going to create some favorable downs and distances, and I think you're going to see a lot more build off of that. Let's move back to the linebacking core, and I think this is an area of the team that most Jet fans would say, I wish we had a little more depth or maybe added another piece throughout free agency or the draft. How are you feeling on the linebacker core?
Yeah, obviously the linebacker core and, of course, the safeties, which I'm sure we're going to get into, are the weakest parts of this defense. And, it's top heavy, really top heavy, because the only really good linebacker we have is C.J. Mosley. And let's not forget about C.J. Mosley, because he is a very good player who's coming off a dominant individual season. Now, yes, the defense as a team was atrocious last year, so it's hard to say CJ had such a great season when he's the quarterback of a terrible defense. But individually, he was all over the field, making plays, making tackles, should improve in coverage, right? But outside of him, what this tells me is that Robert Saleh and the coaching staff and the front office believes in the linebacker core. And I have every reason to believe in them because they've shown an ability to develop these young players, and they went all in on developing. So who did they draft last year, Ryan? They drafted 2 linebackers, Hamza Nasruddin and Jamion Sherwood. Now, why they did not do anything crazy in their rookie seasons to prove to us to be the future of this position, I just feel like Jamion Sherwood was actually looking pretty darn good, and then he went down with an Achilles injury. Hamza Nasruddin, he was playing a lot of special teams, and he didn't really get a lot of time out there. But what I'm trying to say is maybe they have a long-term vision for both Nasruddin and Sherwood where they feel like they're going to be part of this defensive rotation because they like safety hybrids converting to linebackers where they have long arms. They can play in the middle of the zone because we all know that the coverage over the middle was just terrible last year. I feel like if Sherwood or Nasruddin can really step up and develop, that'll be huge. And of course, the starting linebacker next to CJ is Quincy Williams. I'm really high on Quincy Williams. I love his heat-seeking missile mentality, but there's no denying that he does struggle in coverage. So that's where this team goes from. It's like Quincy Williams is really good against the run, could rush the passer, but when it comes to coverage, he does get eaten alive. So the linebacker core, not the best on the team.
So you touched on it briefly. The safety position would be another area that Jet fans are kind of a little worried about the depth. We do think we're better. We get LaMarcus Joyner back. We didn't really get to see him play last year, but he's also, 3 years removed from good safety play. So it's going to be interesting to see what we wind up getting out of him. You bring in Whitehead, who is a legit starter in this league, and now all of a sudden Ashton Davis is relegated to the backup role. So what are your thoughts on the safety position, and how do you think the Jets, will kind of play out this season?
Yeah, I think there's 6 names to look out for the safety depth chart, Ryan. I think that's Jordan Whitehead, Lamarcus Joyner, Will Parks, Ashton Davis, Jason Pinnock, and Elijah Riley. I mean, those are the 6 guys. And of course, you can throw in undrafted free agent Adams from Illinois. But this is not one of those positions where you look at and you feel comfortable like we're used to with Jamal Adams and Marcus May. Like, remember that safety duo that we drafted in the same draft? That's when we had 2 really good safeties. We're getting Jordan Whitehead that I think Jets fans should be really excited about because he's going to be that player that's going to be matched up against those mobile quarterbacks, against those, guys like Josh Allen. He's going to be basically playing the Jamal Adams role. Don't expect him to be Jamal Adams level, but he's going to be that box safety, going to be that guy that's going to be playing quarterback spy, really good against the run, and actually pretty darn good in coverage. Not the best in coverage. He's more about that tackling and hard hitting. He's really hard hitter. I feel like Jets fans are going to like his play style. LaMarcus Joyner is low-key such a big addition to this team if he's healthy, simply because of the communication aspect, Ryan, because Saleh always talked about when Joyner went down, it was so bad for that young secondary because Joyner is the quarterback of that secondary. He keeps everything aligned, and we're going to have a rookie corner in Sauce and DJ Reed in first year in the system. We need to have a guy in Joyner to really be that vocal guy. And then the depth behind them, definitely not ideal, but I feel like it's all about the defensive line. If the defensive line takes that next step, the safety depth won't be that much of a problem, in my opinion.
We were all so, I would say, I don't know if excited is the right word, but looking forward to seeing all our young guys play at cornerback. And we had some really encouraging play from Bryce Hall and Brandon Eccles and Michael Carter II. And then the Jets go out this offseason and they bring in a top 10 corner in DJ Reed, and they go out and they spend the number 4 overall pick on Sauce Gardner. So what are your thoughts now, having our starters from last year relegated to backup roles in the cornerback room?
That just makes the depth that much better because we're not just getting backups, players that we're like, all right, if someone gets hurt, we'll throw them into the fire and see what they can do. Like, no, we know what Bryce Hall can do. We know what Brandon Eccles can do. They both have a full season of starting football underneath their belt. Brandon Eccles as a rookie, Bryce Hall as a sophomore. So now the depth is real with this cornerback room, where if unfortunately one of Sauce or DJ or Michael Carter II or one of those guys do go down, I have all the confidence in the world in one of Bryce Hall or Brandon Eccles to be subbed in and get the job done because they're developing on their own rate as well. This is probably one of the best positions on paper in terms of young talent and depth for the future on this entire roster is the cornerback room. And I really say that especially with the addition of Sauce Gardner because he is now the Richard Sherman of Robert Saleh's defense. Not saying that Sauce is going to be Richard Sherman, but he is going to be playing that role, a long, lanky quarterback corner on the outside trying to be there. So I think Jets fans should be really excited. And probably, Ryan, before we end off on the cornerback topic, one of my favorite players on this entire defense and the most underrated players, I think, and the only sophomore that'll be starting on the defense is Michael Carter II. He's going to be starting in the nickel role. He sacked Tom Brady. He had a bunch of flashy plays. Expected big-time jump from Michael Carter II to the point where he's on the field a lot, blitzing the quarterback and just in coverage. I feel like Michael Carter II is going to establish himself as one of the top corners in the slot in the league.
And you think about the whole defense as a whole, you get that edge rush now and you have the upgraded corners. Not only are the corners going to be better by virtue of being better players, but by having that pass rush, you're going to get opportunities for rushed passes, for tipped balls, things of that nature. And it's really going to you're going to see a lot more turnovers this year. And I think more opportunities for Zach Wilson to get the ball back. That's kind of something that Robert Saleh talked about earlier this offseason. We don't have to get a weapon on offense to help our young quarterback. And I think we saw them do just that by attacking the edge rush and those cornerbacks. Let's move over to the offensive side of the ball. Now, there's a lot of things that are different this year. The offensive line is an interesting one. We have Mekhi Becton, who was out all of last year, coming back. Is he going to play left tackle? Is he going to play right tackle? George Fant filled in for him phenomenally well, but he's going into the last year of his contract. Is he going to be left tackle or is he going to be right tackle? You move Laken Tomlinson over from San Francisco. He fills in at the left guard spot. AVT gets kicked over to the right guard spot. And then you got your steady Eddie Connor McGovern in at center. So how are you feeling about the Jets' offensive line? Any of the new additions? What kind of things should we expect out of this offensive unit?
I think Jets fans should be extremely excited about the latest addition to the offensive line because we basically just replaced Greg Van Roten with a player, Nate Herbig, who is better, younger, and cheaper. That is just Joe Douglas wizardry right there. Not saying that's we should be popping champagne over a backup guard, but this just shows you that Joe Douglas continuously makes the right decisions behind the scenes that don't really get the headlines of acquiring quality depth And offensive line is a big time piece that where on paper, Ryan, I'm comfortable with the starting five, but the depth is where I'm a little skeptical. But after the draft and after the addition of Herbig, I like Max Mitchell as that backup role at tackle. I like Herbig as a guy to sub in on the interior offensive line if something does go wrong. But when it comes to those five, man, it really comes down to them staying healthy. I think that if they stay healthy, Ryan, this might be a bold take, but if they stay healthy, I believe that this offensive line has potential to be top 5 in the league in the run game. On paper, there's no reason why that can't happen. If Mekhi Becton is back to the ways of his rookie ways, but takes a little step, guys, Mekhi Becton has a really good rookie season. Wasn't perfect, but if Mekhi Becton improves a little bit from his rookie season, and he's obviously healthy, that right side with Elijah Vera Tucker, if he's on the right side, or even if he's on the left side, the run game is real with Mekhi. And getting a Pro Bowler in Tomlinson is legit. I think the guard position is the biggest piece to the puzzle of this offensive line with a Pro Bowler in Lincoln Tomlinson and a future Pro Bowler potential opening up holes for Hall and Carter. I think on paper, man, it's potentially elite in the run game. In pass protection, I think they'll be okay. They're going to be good. They're going to hold up for Zach. Not the best pass protecting O-line in the league, but the run game is where to look out for because on paper, we're scary.
That offensive line, and you brought up Herbig, and it's amazing to see how Joe Douglas works this because he actually brought Herbig into Philadelphia while he was still the VP of player personnel, and then the Jets wound up bringing Douglas over. So he got someone that he's already scouted previously that he liked enough to bring in to the NFL and sign to the Eagles. So getting him at this point in the offseason is pretty nice, a nice little grab.
For free. For free. I mean, it really tells you, like I said, that he is getting, and to remind everybody about the waiver wire. Some guys that Joe Douglas acquired off of there, that two of them that we've extended and paid him money, John Franklin Myers, Braxton Berrios, Ty Johnson, Quincy Williams, add Nate Herbig to the mix, and I'm expecting him to be on the Jets this year contributing and being that, backup guard. And I think, like I said, younger, better, cheaper. You can't go wrong.
You talk about Joe Douglas and his ability to find talent. The waiver wire has been absolutely fantastic. I know people wanted to give him a little bit of crap for the 2020 draft, but after this year's draft and last year's draft and all the moves that we've seen him make, the trades, it's been nothing short of amazing. And two players that he wound up adding this offseason, we'll kick it out to the tight ends now. How different does our tight end room look? You don't have Ryan Griffin. You don't have Croft or Wesco out there starting anymore. Now you have guys like Uzama, guys like Conklin, and then you have Jeremy Ruckert backing him up. This is awesome. Something I don't think we've seen depth in a very, very long time, maybe since Dustin Keller, probably. So what are your thoughts on the Jets' new tight end room?
It is one of those positions that I was criticizing Joe Douglas of for a long time. Never prioritized the tight end position, never drafted one, going with undrafted guys, signing guys like Ryan Griffin and Tyler, Croft and all these guys. And I'm like, the tight end position is so bad. But he goes into this offseason, Ryan, and he understands and he's hearing my cries. And he goes out there and signs two quality veteran tight ends in CJ Uzama, who is not only going to impact this team on the field, but I think more importantly, Ryan, he's going to be impacting this team in the locker room because he is a big reason why the Cincinnati Bengals was such a team with spirit and pride and a demeanor because the culture that he really instilled in that Bengals team, because they're really young with a young signal caller in Joe Burrow. And CJ Uzama was that captain that was, galvanizing them and, giving them hype speeches before games. And the Jets need a player like that, especially on offense, to give Zach confidence, give the playmakers confidence, rile them up a little bit. So CJ Uzama is going to be a fan favorite. I know that for sure. And then we get Jeremy Ruckert in the draft. Ryan, these three tight ends that we brought in could have been tight end number one for us the past 5 years. I mean, Conklin and Uzama are not like big time tight end number ones for the future. But the best part about this is we have Ruckert, who we are hoping to develop for the future. So we're 3 deep. And I'm just so happy that Joe Douglas finally revamped this position because it's been so bad and it's been ignored for way too long.
Now, we brought up the running back situation just a little bit ago talking about Breece Hall, but I want to circle back around to it. That position group with Michael Carter, Breece Hall, Tevin Coleman, I think it's really exciting to kind of see what that's going to wind up looking like. What is the lion's share of carries going to be? Is it going to be like 50% Breece Hall? Is it going to be higher than that? How do you envision this year's running back room looking?
It's so crazy because now this position is just as good as all the other positions on offense. Like we're going through it all. I'm like, wow, pick your poison. It's just really that awesome. We got the 2 young bucks in Hall and Carter, and we got the vet in Tevin Coleman, who actually looked pretty darn good last year when his name was called. So I think the carries are going to be split for the most part between Hall and Carter. I think Carter's going to be in there more on passing downs. in the passing game, and Hall might be getting a little more balls in terms of, carries. I think that Hall is probably going to, get more carries than Carter for the season, just because, you don't trade up for a player like that, and especially invest in an early second round pick in a player like Hall to not feed him the rock a lot, because he is a guy that is a home run hitter. Like, he can take it to the distance, and Carter's going to, balance it so beautifully. And I always compared it, and I think you mentioned this earlier as well, Ryan, that Carter's used to, balancing a backfield with another star. At UNC, they had Javonte Williams over there. We see what Williams is doing in Denver. He's a star of his own. So now Carter has his next star to be the co-star with. And I think that, don't look at Michael Carter as running back number 2. Look at him as running back number 1B. I mean, he's going to be right next to Hall, and they're going to be really fun to watch. And Tevin Coleman's that perfect vet to help him out. And keep an eye on undrafted free agent Bam Knight on taking over that running back 4 spot. I'm looking out for that. Bold take.
Oh, loving it. This feels like the best running back room that we've had since we had Curtis Martin. Like, maybe Thomas Jones for a year or so, but it didn't seem like it was going to be an overly long-term answer at the running back position. And you look at Breece Hall, this is someone that could have been taken top 15 just 5, 6, 7 years ago. And like, with the position group kind of being devalued, the Jets really got 4 first-round talents in this draft.
Dude, I'm so happy you said that, because I always bring that up, that the running back position has been devalued, and you see what used to happen. Barkley, Saquon at number 2, Zeke at 4, Leonard Fournette at 7, McCaffrey at 8. I mean, Breece Hall stacks up against all those guys if you just look at his collegiate career at Iowa State. And that's not just saying that because he's a Jet. It's true. What he did in college, 24 straight games with touchdowns. If this was 5 or 7 years ago, Ryan, like you said, he's a top 15 pick guaranteed. And he should have been a first-round pick this year, but it's all good because he's on the Jets. I think that we finally got a player that is the franchise guy, and it's so awesome that we potentially have 2 franchise guys. Like, it's just crazy that it's not like we just have this one guy. We're like, all right, come on, you're the keys to this position. We got 2 because Michael Carter's damn good too.
We've been talking about how much depth we have across the offensive line, across the tight ends, across the running backs, and all the weapons. I think the most exciting part is this is like, last year I considered us having a pretty good wide receiver room. This year, we now have Garrett Wilson. We now have like everyone. Elijah Moore comes back for year 2. Oh, it's just so exciting to really see where this room is headed. So talk to me about our big shiny weapons at the wide receiver position.
The big shiny weapons indeed. This is a position that Joe Douglas has completely revamped. I mean, I'm sorry, he revamped the entire offense. Every single player on offense now is a Joe Douglas acquisition. So I can't just say that about this position. But still, if you look back to what Joe Douglas did, he drafts Denzel Mims in his first draft. We all know how that's going out, but hey, we do not know until what he does in this training camp. And then last year he gets Corey Davis and he gets Elijah Moore, and you cannot forget about Braxton Berrios, who we got on the waiver wire, and now he gets Garrett Wilson in this draft class. Those 5 guys, that's 5 deep, and those are 5 players that I have confidence in to really sub in and make an impact. Braxton Berrios is a player that I feel like is going to have a big-time role on this team, a little more than most Jets fans expect. He's going to be that gadget guy that gets subbed in on certain packages that are really cool plays in the slot, really reliable, definitely on third downs, because if you remember last year, he was so reliable on third down, always went to the sticks, caught it for Zach, and was just a reliable. And I feel like Braxton Berrios low-key might have the best chemistry with Zach Wilson. So I'm expecting big things from him. I know that's not the flashy player. I know you guys want to hear me talk about Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore, but I just got to give my love to Braxton Berrios because I'm so happy he got re-signed here. But we talked about it already. Garrett Wilson has wide receiver 1 potential written all over him. Elijah Moore, if you stretch out his games last year, the final 5 or 6 games of that season, if you stretch that into a 17-game season, he is having one of the best receivers seasons in Jets history. Like, that's how good Elijah Moore was. If he did not get injured, Ryan, at the end of that season, and he continued that for the rest of the year, we'd be looking at Elijah Moore as a player that's going to be wrecking havoc this year. So I think the only thing is going to hold him back is injury. And then Corey Davis is a player that I think Jets fans should really open their minds to, where he could have a bounce-back season, because I think this proved last year that he's not a number 1 receiver, and I think we all knew that when we signed him, but he was thrown into that role. He was the guy that needed to be the number 1 receiver in this offense. We can't rely on a rookie and Elijah Moore and Jamison Crowder, right? And we saw what Corey Davis did in Tennessee. He had his best career season next to A.J. Brown. And he is a guy that takes advantage. He's a great number 2 receiver in this league, and he's our number 3 receiver. So look for Corey Davis to get open with Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore eating it up when he gets freed. So I think we're really deep, and I'm excited to see what they can do, Ryan, because the weapons for Zach Wilson is legit. it's the best in the league, I think, out of all the year 2 quarterbacks in terms of situation.
Now, you said Zach Wilson. It feels like this is the offense tailor made to him. We got no excuses now. All the weapons are there. The protection is going to be there. How does our young signal caller handle year 2 in the NFL?
Great question, Ryan. And I think that this is a really big season for him. I mean, we already saw what happened when he showed up to voluntary OTAs. He has a brand new body. He's already putting on weight. And I made a video on that. And some people are like, Richie, why does this matter? It matters because Zach Wilson, as a rookie, if you look at his physical body, he just wasn't physically, up to par for a guy that you feel like can be a franchise quarterback in terms of just physically. And I always felt like he needs to grow into his body. Like he absolutely has to in order to be able to take these hits that he's going to take as an NFL quarterback. And already in year number 2, Ryan, he shows up and he is putting on really good weight, on muscle weight. And Robert Saleh also said he still's got the zip, he still got the loosey arm, which is what you want to hear. And I look for in year number 2, in my opinion, is 20 plus touchdowns to like 10 picks ratio, like around there. Give me 20 plus, give me 22, 23 touchdowns, give me 10 or less interceptions, give me 3,000 plus yards. I think that's a good year 2 for Zach Wilson. All we need him to do is take a step of improvement and not regress and not do the same mistakes over and over again. We do not need him to be an outworldly elite quarterback right now in order for this offense to succeed. He has all the weapons he needs to let this offense structure properly under Mike LaFleur. He just needs to eliminate the turnovers and play within the structure of this offense. But the one thing I will say about Zach Wilson that should give Jets fans a lot of excitement about him is if it does click for him, if things does go his way, he has the talent to be really, really good in this league with the weapons he has here. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year. I think he's going to break out onto the scene, Ryan. If he does hit his potential, that's going to be in year number 3 in terms of lighting up the league. But he's going to show us really good glimpse, and there's no excuse for this year for him because you see what the Jets did with Sam Darnold and Geno and all the guys in the previous years. We always gave those quarterbacks excuses. Now, all of a sudden, we cannot give our quarterback excuses anymore. Thank you, Joe Douglas. We've been waiting for this for so long. We needed protection. We needed weapons. We need coaching for a quarterback to succeed. It's all there for you. Now it's up to Zach Wilson, and I got all the confidence in him to take advantage of his opportunity and prove to be a top quarterback in this league and emerge in year number 2 as a guy that let people look around the league as, damn, Zach Wilson ain't no bust. He's a stud, and he's going to be really good for the future.
Dude, I have people talk to me and they're always like, oh, do you really believe in Zach Wilson? And I really, really do. Like, I think, like you said, he has all the talent in the world. And when you look at this AFC now, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Herbert, Burrow, Mahomes, Russell Wilson, like this whole conference is loaded. And when I look at the other AFC East quarterbacks outside of Allen, I look at Tua, I look at Mac Jones. I don't really get the feeling of like, hey, these guys might be able to overcome some of the obstacles that their offenses may create or that the situations they might get into. When I look at Zach Wilson, while look, I can understand like a quarterback can bust. This guy's got the talent, if he can put it all together, to really be a top quarterback in this league. And I think it's really encouraging. If you want to compete in the AFC, I think Zach Wilson is the caliber of quarterback that you're going to need.
It's really not far-fetched to say that, Ryan. I mean, he was drafted at number 2 for a reason. It's not like we're talking about a 4th-round pick that we're hoping to develop and we're seeing something. Like, there's no denying the talent is there. And like you said, it's all about him putting it together. And to the people that say he's a bust, the one thing I will say about Zach Wilson, in my opinion, it's a fact. I mean, that probably didn't make any sense. But I think it's too early to claim that Zach Wilson is a bust. I also think it's too early to claim that Zach Wilson's a franchise quarterback. It's too premature. We'll get that answer this season. I think that you saw the first half of the season with Zach. It was atrocious, 9 turnovers to 4 touchdowns. He had one great game against Tennessee to get us that dub. But outside of that, it was just terrible. Comes back from injury, 5 straight games and no picks, played better football. We saw a tale of 2 halves. So I think it's too premature to say he's a bust. I also don't think it's right to like hand him the keys to be the franchise quarterback yet, even though I think he can become that. Let's just be patient and let it all unfold.
So moving on from the players on the field to the guys behind the scenes, and that's Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur, Ulbrich, Douglas. What are you feeling about our coaching staff? What do you expect to see from them going into year 2?
Yeah, this is a big test for Robert Saleh, man. I feel like he has, the talent on the roster to put together 8-win season. I mean, I don't think that's – you look at this team on paper, outside of a catastrophic season of injuries again, there's no denying that this team doesn't have talent to win football games. And now it's on Robert Saleh Not even talking about the defense. He's the head coach of this football team. He needs to focus on the offense. He needs to focus on the special teams and the defense. So I think Robert Saleh is that, guy that's really going to be the CEO this year to really make sure his voice is heard in all the meeting rooms, make sure that he's gaining that chemistry with each of his players, riling them up, making sure that they are comfortable in the system, making sure that they know where to go with the ball if you're Zach Wilson, or where the ball needs to be on offense, or where your spot needs to be on defense. I think this is a big year for him. And then you branch it down to the coordinators. Jeff Ulbrich is obviously, the guy that makes all the play calls for the defense. And he called the defense for the 32nd ranked defense in the league last year. And I think that had a lot to do with youth and inexperience and injuries on top of Jeff Ulbrich struggling as a defensive coordinator. So it's up to him to really, scheme these guys to make sure they execute at another level, because we need this defense to be at least top 20 this year. And I don't think that's too unrealistic to ask for. And then Mike LaFleur is coming off a year where we're like, wow, not only is this offensive coordinator like cool, but he has all of these tricks up his sleeve. And just imagine what he can do with a full offseason of looking back on what he did and what he can do differently on all these creative ideas with Zach Wilson in year number 2. I think the biggest component, Ryan, to this offense clicking right now is continuity. I think Mike LaFleur going into the same system with his year 2 quarterback and all these returning players, that's what makes offenses work, is continuity, is having the people understand the plays instinctually. And I'm excited for Mike LaFleur in year number 2. I really genuinely believe that LaFleur is good enough to become a head coach in the future. Not next year or the year after that, but long-term. He has that mind. His brother is one. He comes from it. I see that in him. He's that bright and that creative, and I cannot wait to see what Booth LaFleur whips up in year number 2.
It's going to be a lot of fun watching these guys develop and seeing how this offense just unfolds. He's got all the toys that he could. When's the last time we saw a hook and ladder? That was one of the most exciting plays we got to see all season, and it really wound. I don't even think we wound up scoring on that drive, if I remember correctly. Like, just a really cool, creative mind, best offensive coordinator that we've seen in a really, really long time. It felt like we were actually playing big boy football last year.
It's about damn time, Ryan. The offense has been the issue for so long, and it just feels good that we don't have like an offensive mind like a Gase who just stays to his system and it's stale and it's just so structurally wrong, to a guy that's free and you can get creative and you can do things that haven't been done in years, like a hook and lateral and throwing the ball back to Zach Wilson for another, Zach hands it off to Berrios and then Berrios throws it back to Zach Wilson and Zach Wilson makes 2 people miss and then he throws it across his body. That was a highlight against the Miami Dolphins, by the way. That actually happened. So what he's doing creatively is amazing. And another thing that I love about LaFleur is he's really good at scheming guys open. And the one thing I will another say about LaFleur is you see what Mike White did? 400 yards. I love Mike White, and he did a phenomenal job executing that, but that was Mike LaFleur at its finest, just scheming guys open. All Mike White needed to do is just dink and dunk down to Michael Carter and the running backs and the receivers, and he got 400 yards because the offense was just ran beautifully, and that's what we're expecting from Zach Wilson year number 2 with another year under his belt with the system.
So, Richie, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Let everyone know where they can find you and what you got going on.
Yeah, man, Ryan, it's always a pleasure coming on here, talking some Jets football with you. I got a lot to say, as you can see, and thank you for all you guys watching this video. As you guys know, I'm also a Jets YouTuber at Jets Media. I post a lot of content. I go live all the time. Right now, I'm in the process of creating my brand new series I call Rookie Profiles, where I designate an entire video to each draft pick. Just came out with Sauce Gardner. Next up will be Garrett Wilson. So, Ryan, I appreciate you, letting me come on here and talk some Jets football with you. Love to have you on my show again soon, and I appreciate everybody tuning in to this collab. Let's go Jets.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you have not subscribed to Richie, all his links are going to be down in the description down below. I don't know what you're doing if you're not subscribed, but Richie, thank you so much for coming on. Boys and girls, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you like this year's draft? Do you like Richie's opinions on this year's draft? Let me know everything in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.